Okay. Thank you for being here. All right. We need more seats. We've got such a crowd tonight. Okay, I call this meeting of the Magnolia Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Opens Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. So if everybody please stand, I'll lead us in an invocation and pledges. If you would bow with me, thank you. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessing that you provide us to live in this community, for the district, for the administration, for the teachers, for the students, for the staff, for everybody that you provide us to do the best we can here and call it home. We just thank you for all the ways you lead us and guide us. Please keep us in your path and light it up and direct us and have us walk in your way and give you all the glory. Thank you for your grace and your mercy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. United States Pledge.
Pledge allegiance. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Hinkleman, do we have anybody signed up to speak? Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, we've got a consent agenda, rather short. This consists of items to be routine and acted by one motion unless we need separate discussion. Is there separate discussion needed? And if not, then we need a motion that we approve the consent agenda items. Motion by David, seconded by Stacia. All in favor? That motion passes. Thank you. All right, Dr. Morris, I think you're on deck.
Thank you, guys. Let's see if this thing is on.
Yes, you're good.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. It wasn't. So I'm not sure what the attendance says either about the content that I covered or my delivery, but here we are, or both. So, guys, a lot of the stuff I'm going to go over tonight prior to the opening it up to the public in this public hearing. You guys have seen several times in workshops and things of that nature. So I'll go fairly quickly, but please do not hesitate to ask questions.
Is this something we can see on our screens? By chance? No.
I can see it over here, but it's not showing over here.
Not showing on our screens. No, it's not.
It's not showing on y'all's screens either.
And my eyesight is,
We've got the first
Struggling.
page. I think the subsequent ones are not clicking over.
Give us a second. He's working on it.
There you go. Like that. I need to move it a little closer, Mike, if you don't mind. I don't know if y'all can see that. I'm
Have you got enough rope?
Okay, we'll take whatever we can get.
You may have to forgive me if I will have to walk over there on occasion because I didn't do printouts. So,
That's good.
okay,
Okay. I can.
I'll pull a Dr. Bullock pacing discussion. Okay, so tonight we're going to cover the proposed budget and tax rate that in the regular meeting tonight I'll ask you guys to approve. Okay, just as a quick reminder, as it relates to budgetary highlights, and I know we've gone into great detail about these items, but for revenue driving purpose, well, let me back up. The three primary funds that the board is required to approve tonight are all balanced. I know that that's, something we've talked about before, but I think that's perhaps the most important thing to convey tonight. From a revenue perspective, in terms of changes versus prior year, we built a budget based on a conservative estimate of a 400 student growth. We've already exceeded that already in this current year, so we're in a good position from that perspective. Also, we have a one-time increase in our new instructional facilities allotment, where the state provides us some additional dollars for opening new facilities, instructional facilities, for Magnolia Parkway Intermediate and Magnolia Parkway Junior High. It is a substantial amount. It's approximately $1,000 per student, which will result in approximately $1 million, but that is for only 1 year. Okay? And then finally, obviously, we've talked about this at length, the 89th legislative session, and HB2 that passed. Vast majority of the increase in funding is passed through for teacher raises, right? So then on the expenditure side, we're funding 2 new facilities, right? A lot of staff, substantial amount in additional operating costs and things of that nature. Then we're passing through the raises that the state has provided for our teachers. And then we're able to come up with additional local funds to make sure that we gave raises to all of our employees and that we focused on closing that veteran teacher pay gap. And I know we've looked at that many times, but I'm going to show another slide of that in just a moment. So I know this is hard to see probably from you guys right there, but put this together, and we talked about it in the last budget workshop, but wanted to sort of show, what the raises mean with our focus on our veteran teachers and closing that gap. So this shows an average, if you'll see in the yellow there, of the teacher pay disparity with some of our competitors from last year and where that stands this year. And I know in the workshop that we just were in, we talked about how many teachers, that we have that are 5 or less years of experience. And hopefully, being very intentional with closing that teacher pay gap, we will see an increase in our average years of experience for our teachers over the next several years. But we closed the pay gap from approximately $5,000 to right at $2,500. And I would ask you to focus even more so, if you can see that far, on 20 and 25 year. So on 20 and 25 year, we have cut the disparity from between 4,200 to 5,000 down to 1,500 and 1,000. Okay, so substantial, cut, if you will, on that disparity. Very pleased with that. Okay, any questions on that? Okay. So here are the numbers. And again, I know we looked at these 2 weeks ago and nothing has changed. 3 primary funds, the debt service fund, food service fund, and general fund are all balanced. Okay, so in our regular meeting, I will ask you to approve those. Any questions on this? And I'm going to go through a couple of how we compare with some of our surrounding districts and how we spend our money. Okay. So here's the first one here is instructional expenses. Guys, we talk over and over throughout the years and with pride on how we focus dollars in the classroom. So here's a comparison of some of our surrounding districts in terms of the percentage of our general fund budget that we spend directly on instructional and instructional support cost. And I don't know if you can see it, but we are at just over almost 66%. So the only district in our areas that it's slightly higher than us is Tomball. And they're at 65 and some change as well. So round up, Tomball and Magnolia are both at 66%. Okay, questions on that? One of the other items that we've taken pride in for many years is that we've always tried to do more with less, and really focused on reducing administrative cost when possible. So what this slide shows is a comparison of administrative cost ratio with some of the surrounding districts. And our percentage, as it relates to instructional percentage, is right at 7.5%. And again, it's kind of hard to see, but we are in the third column there, and you can see how we compare to a few of the others. Tomball ISD, for example, spends 8.5% on direct administrative costs versus our 7.5%. Okay, questions on that? So I was really quick with the budgets, but let's shift gears and start talking about tax rates for a second. Covered this in our workshop 2 weeks ago, but normal growth for our area of 11%. However, the assumption is that the increase in the homestead and over 65 exemptions will go into effect after a vote in November. So our property value growth is minimal based on that, but it is still positive because of the new properties in our area. So we're growing right at 3%. Okay, questions on that? Tax rate history. Obviously we anticipate maintaining the existing INS rate, and the M&O is sort of set for us based on state aid calculations in the school funding system for tax rate compression purposes. So there is a very slight decrease on the M&O. So the overall tax rate will go down very slightly. Okay, any questions on that? And here's a history of that. You can see that we've had substantial decreases throughout the years. I think the highest I recall was in 05-06, and we were at $1.79 in comparison to 95 cents now.
I have a question.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
So we're adopting a tax rate that is supposed to be an increase, but yet it actually is going down. Can you kind of explain a little bit?
So based on the language that we are required, and if you'll let me, I'll wait till that, if that's okay. But yes, it does. Well, I'll tell you what, we can talk about it now. So basically the language that's prescribed by the comptroller and their truth in taxation requirements makes an attempt to show taxpayers if we're increasing revenue or not, based on the proposed rate versus the prior year rate. And I have a few notes here on that because it gets in the weeds a little bit, but it's what's known as the no new revenue rate calculation, okay? Which means when we get ready to propose a tax rate in the regular meeting, Mr. Blizzard will have to state very specific language that suggests that we may be increasing our tax rate, and that's not the case, okay? So I'll try to describe it for you, and let's see. So the no new revenue rate, like I mentioned earlier, basically attempts to perform a calculation that says, based on your proposed tax rate, will you generate more revenue than you did last year, or new revenue, okay? And so I believe the calculation is creditable or perhaps meaningful for those entities that that are not also lumped in with state funding and things of that nature. Let's talk about cities and counties where their primary source of revenue, or their only source of revenue to an extent, is property tax receipts, okay? So let's say a city, generated X number of dollars this year, this past year, and they propose a rate that is either the same or slightly lower than the previous year. Well, as their property value increases, then the suggestion is, they're accessing new revenue. And the intent from the comptroller is to notify taxpayers to a degree that taxing entity, in concept, could have maintained the same tax rate or lowered it to have the same amount of revenue they did in the previous year. Of course, we know from an expenditure perspective, inflation and things of that nature, it makes it very difficult for that to happen. So where it gets quirky, just as with many other things, a school district is more complicated than that, okay? So, with our proposed M&O rate, it's slightly lower than this past year. But because we have additional property value, it generates new revenue, if you will. The problem with the language and the calculation itself is it's only telling a piece of the story. Because you all know, because we've been through this many, many times, a school district's funding is based on a combination of local and state funding on a per pupil basis, okay? So none of these calculations take into the consideration that were we to lower the M&O tax rate, that it would result in losing state dollars as well. So it fails to tell the entire picture. Does this make sense, guys? I mean, I've tried, and I've been doing this for a
Dr.
long
Morris,
time.
let me ask you a technical question
sir.
and see if I can't kind of clarify this. So our total tax rate on the property tax basis is being compressed this year. Is that not correct?
It is correct, yes, sir.
Do you know what percentage that is?
It is
I know
ve-
it's like,
it's
it's
very,
pretty small.
Very, very minimal, yes, sir. I mean, it is fractions of a penny. It's a tenth
Okay.
of a percent of a penny.
It's compressed every year, actually.
Yeah, but it's very minimal this year because we're only increasing 3% in property value because of the increase in the homestead
But
exemption.
that term compressed applies every year.
It
not
does.
just-
No, I understand that. And so on the compression basis, in order for this to actually be an increase in tax revenue, we would have to, on an inflationary basis, have an increase in property value that increases by a commensurate or more significant amount than the compression of the tax rate. But on a per dollar, per value basis, our taxes to a property owner are going down on the rate.
The tax rate is going down, that's
Okay,
correct. Yes, sir.
thank you.
And you're correct with that first statement too, Jay. I mean, again, it simply fails to tell the entire story for a school district funding perspective. It's not inaccurate if you look at half the picture, but it is inaccurate to suggest that we're going to have more money next year on a total basis for local and state revenue. So it's a great question, and hopefully I won't have to go in that much more discussion when we do the adoption then later. Yes, ma'am.
sure.
No, it's okay. It was going to be covered one way or another.
In fact, one of the things I mentioned to him was that this 10.47% increase in the tax rate, those words are not accurate. Because it should be revenue, it should be a further explanation of this stuff. Those half a dozen words are not factual.
And the calculation itself suggests that we could go from roughly 95 cents to 86 cents and produce the same amount of revenue that we did in previous year, which is likely a fact from a local revenue perspective, but it is not from a total funding perspective. So I believe that.
And it doesn't take into account that we're funded on a per student basis.
100%, yes, sir. Which means, you could call it either false or simply inaccurate from my perspective. Okay. So here's a comparison. Now, please know that these are 24-25 rates where I'm comparing our total proposed tax rate versus other districts in the Houston area. They haven't completed theirs yet. So, but as we know, with the increases in the homestead exemption and things of that nature, the rates are going to remain roughly the same. If a district issued a substantial amount of new debt, their INS may increase. But as we've talked about, even should we pass the bond in November, there will be no increase in the INS. So it shows us at 95 cents here. I'm sure it's hard to see from there. Conroe is roughly a penny less than us at 94 cents. And then you have the anomaly because of size in Houston ISD, which is at 86 cents. Okay? But you can see that we're one of only a handful that is less than $1, and we're third lowest in the Houston area. Okay? So I wanted to go in, and I'm going to probably have to walk on this one, guys. I wanted to show, since we're talking about INS rate and things of that nature, a little bit about our debt picture, okay, and how we compare to some other districts. So I've got multiple views here. This first one is total debt outstanding. Now, that number is going to be skewed the larger the district, right? But it's still something to look at. So this is us, Magnolia ISD, right here. We have about $300 million in outstanding debt, okay? Then you go up, and this is College Station, Willis, Montgomery, Spring, Tomball. Tomball's right here at about $1.3 billion, Okay, so that's just a comparison. It shows that, that we're in a good position based on our efforts the last handful of years to pass new bonds without having to increase the tax rate. Here's another view. It's outstanding debt to assessed value ratio, which is your total existing debt as it compares to your total property value. We're once again right here, the lowest, at 2.75%, and New Caney is up here at 12%. You do not want to be there. Montgomery 6%, Tomball 5.5%. So we're less than half of Tomball. Okay. And finally, this is outstanding debt per student. Just another view. Okay. Again, we're right here. We're at just over $20,000 per student compared to Tomball ISD at $40,000. Montgomery ISD at $55,000 is the highest. So again, just another way to look at our debt picture. Questions on that? Okay, so I went through that pretty quickly. Again, we'll go through the adoptions in the regular meeting, but be happy to answer any questions, and then I guess the next move after that is opening it up for public comment.
I have another question. I know we've talked about the tax rate, but kind of coming to the budget side of things, we talked a lot about the compensation improvements for this year, and I think that's necessary, and I believe one of our most important assets is our staff. But do you mind just offering a little bit of background in the manner in which we allocate non-payroll expenses, like campus, department, and student programs? Like, how do we needle into that and come up with those numbers?
It's a great question. We don't spend a lot of time talking about those things because, we know payroll makes up 86% of our budget, but it's a good question. And I guess the short answer is we use really two different approaches. For our campuses, we allocate budgets based on a per student basis, the same at the different levels, but the same for elementaries and then middle schools and then junior highs and then high schools. Obviously, campuses that have a higher low SES population may receive some Title I money as well to help with the at-risk students and so forth. So there will be some flexibility there, but generally they receive about the same amount of money. Departments and programs in terms of maintenance, food service, transportation, and then the student programs. In much regard, they're historical in nature. If we feel like we've been able to meet the needs of those departments and programs in the past, generally speaking, we know that we're going to allocate a similar amount of money. We do meet, with our program directors for the students, and if those are growing and we're receiving additional state dollars for those programs, such as CTE, they will receive additional dollars as well. Then as it relates to the operation side of things, obviously, we're forced into increasing those sometimes. Cost of fuel increases, cost of electricity increases, but generally speaking, the operational side of things is very historical in nature. So it's a good question. Hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I just know that in my conversations with other parents, they ask the questions, so there's not a lot of people here, but just let it kind of be heard and described. I think it's
Sure.
valuable. Thank you.
It's a great question, yes, ma'am. And again, we'll sit down with our program folks, whether it be athletics or CTE and whatnot. If there's special needs associated with their programs from year to year, we'll try our best to find the dollars. So. Any other questions? Okay.
All right, so at this time, we're going to move into a public hearing regarding the 25-26 proposed budget and open the mic for anybody who has any comments regarding Dr. Morris's presentation. Crickets. Okay. If there's no comments, we're going to conclude this hearing. The time is 7:10, I believe it is.
7:02.
Oh.
7:02.
7:02, sorry. Okay, Dr. Morris, I think you're on again.
I was hoping for some no new revenue questions. That's fine. Just kidding. Okay, so first off, we're looking at consider adoption of the proposed school budget. Let me go with D, back up. I guess in short, guys, I mean, we're requesting that the board adopt the budgets as presented. And there are amounts on that. Hopefully that's in your motion.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it
You
is.
ready for that?
Yes, sir.
All
I'm
right.
ready. I'm ready when you are. Yes, sir.
Okay. We need a motion that the board approve to adopt the proposed 25-26 budgets in the amount of $204,315,994 with a general operating fund of $157,411,826, a debt service fund of $38,520,348, and child nutrition fund of $8,383,820. We need a motion. David, seconded by Jordan. All in favor? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Carry on.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of the M&O rate, and here's where the fund language comes into play. I guess I just want to point out again that we are, in fact, decreasing the tax rate in total, okay? So it's my recommendation that the board approves an M&O tax rate of 0.6657 per $100 valuation.
Okay, we got any questions about that? I think a couple of us have expressed our discontent with this wording, but I'm going to read it because that's what we're required to say. We need a motion to approve the 2025 ad valorem tax rate for maintenance and operations, M&O, of 0.6657 per $100 valuation. I further move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.9583 per $100, which is effectively a 10.47% increase in the tax rate. I've never read anything that sounds worse. Okay. I need a motion for that. Tax rate will, let me read this. The tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. Motion by Dasha, seconded by Jordan. All in favor? All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Last component for budget and tax rate is consideration of the debt service tax rate. It is my recommendation that we maintain the existing rate of 0.2926 per $100 valuation.
Any questions about that? So here we go. Then we need a motion to adopt the 2025 ad valorem tax rate for debt service of 0.2926 per $100 valuation. Motion by Stacia, seconded by David. All in favor? The motion passes. Thank you.
And the final thing for me tonight, as part of the 25-26 compensation plan, the board approved a one-time retention payment of $500 for all employees, which is very meaningful for our folks, in particular our hourly folks, excuse me, to be paid on September 15th. In order for that to happen, I need the board to approve a resolution to do so.
Questions? Everybody good?
What we passed in June was just an agreement that this was in the budget? So
That's correct. As part of the compensation plan, in
Okay.
order to protect the district for gift of public funds purposes, we need a resolution. Yes, sir.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the proposed resolution establishing a one-time payment for district employees. Motion by Jordan, seconded by Stacia. All in favor? All right, the motion passes. Thank you, sir. And of course, you mentioned that the budget is developed on 400 students. We've already got 800, and by the time we get to snapshot, we'll have even more probably, right?
We hope so.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I mean,
So-
it's sort of a moving target. I mean, I hesitate to say that there's 800
Sure.
right now versus last year.
Sure.
But
It's a crystal
somewhere
ball.
between 400 and 700, I would say, yes, sir. I mean, we're in a good position. I think
Yeah.
that's the sum. There are some unknowns as it relates to some of the funding components associated with HB2, so some of that will offset any decrease that we anticipated, but we're in a good position. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is this,
Dr. King?
Dr. King?
Does that say Dr. Morse? Yeah, you're Dr. King.
Yes. You're on.
Do y'all have that
Yeah.
on your screen?
No, we do not, but yours might be easier to see.
Might be, but I won't pretend that I came prepared. I just have a little bit more time to react. So, there you go. Gotta wait yet.
I'm sure he's not throwing shade. Thank you.
Dr. King, I notice you don't know how to use the stapler.
Well, I do my best, Jay. I'll blame it on the printer. Okay. So y'all forgive me a little bit if I'm looking down. I got my laptop here. It's the same presentation y'all have there, so we'll try to flip along here. So, do have a sort of a rewrite, sort of a kind of a revised or new sort of policy with the same three letters there with EFB local. It deals with library materials. The change was compelled from Senate Bill 13. Was passed in the last legislative session. It'll go into effect September 1st. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to, this is one of the policies that we have. I've talked to you before about all the policies that are supposed to go in place on September 1st that we won't have from TASB as they work through a lot of the changes for the legislation. This is one that we do have, so I wanted to go ahead and get it in front of you guys and so you could consider it. So again, 89th legislature, it continues to provide parents with access to library catalogs, control over library materials or child selects and input on materials. That really hasn't changed. One new thing is it does authorize and require school boards to determine if library materials that are just proposed for purchase, that are new, not all the library books that are currently in our library, but the ones that we propose for purchase from here on out, are required, the school board is required to vote to approve or reject. That won't come for some time, and you'll see why here in a minute, but that is part of this bill and part of our policy, and it does expand a bit the protections from inappropriate material in library books.
Hey, Dr. King,
Yes, ma'am.
is this supposed to be following along on the screen?
It is now.
Okay.
But I guess it wasn't on the right.
I could tell from my papers that we were, but I
You know what?
just making sure.
There it is. So,
There you
that's what
go.
I just went over?
Yep, okay.
Good there? Okay. All right.
So, Dr. King, when you say school boards to approve or determine if library materials proposed, are included in campus libraries, that, I guess, like you said, is not existing, but if we build a new campus, that would fall under that,
Yes, sir.
because that's new books we just bought or
Yes,
need
sir.
to buy.
I have a note on this in a little bit, but it does kind of get in the weeds. If it's a brand new ISBN, which is an international standard book number, then yes. If they're the same ISBN, then no. So that would be books that are already been approved. The best example that was given to me was, for instance, like, hey, Harry Potter, right? That's probably in our libraries. It's got 40 ISBNs because every time there's a hard copy or a 20th anniversary or whatever, it's a different ISBN. So you would see books like that on the list that we would ask for you to approve. Although Harry Potter would have already been in our library, you would have to approve it because it's a new ISBN. That makes sense there. Good question. All right, quick rundown on just the purpose. Again, we're just trying to make sure that our libraries have a wide range of materials, support student achievement, present varying levels of difficulty, diversity of appeal, variety of viewpoints, like most every public library in schools and otherwise. The policy provides standards for collection development. I'll get into that here in just a minute.
Is it mandating that we have to have a library? Because I know that's a consideration now when building new schools, that we don't necessarily have to have a library.
Jay, that's a good question. If you'll allow me to give you my best stab at that, just don't hold me to it.
Fair enough, thanks.
I do believe we have to have a library. How they're built, like, so most of our schools right now will have a rather large library, particularly our high schools. From what I understand, and someone keep me from going off the ledge here, I think that you can kind of divide the library up among the building in smaller sections if you wanted to. Whether or not we have to have a library, though, I'm not sure about. I could get that information on you. I would like to say that yes, we would have to have a library, but not sure.
It just seems like there's been discussion about everything's electronic these days and whatever. So it would almost surprise me that we don't have our book, like our catalog, available electronically.
We do.
No, yeah, okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah.
Yeah, so all that now will be available online. We have, I think, several, and that's probably cutting it short, ebooks, electronic materials. So it's not just books. I mean, any kind of research materials or databases and stuff like that, all online, and I'll go over that in a minute, but that's open access pretty much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and Mr. Michaels, I'll just add to, maybe for someone our age, the term library is a very specific connotation, or at least my age, I'm sure, I see stacks of books and lines, and I see card catalogs, and that's kind of not where we are anymore. And even, if a lot of the materials are digital, still, this stuff about what is suitable for a collection and how we go about that applies even to digital stuff. So like the physical space of a library is probably going to continue to evolve and be different over time. But the standards of collection and how some of this is derived comes from, standardized stuff across the state and best practices. So.
Well, and believe it or not, even people my age still remember the library as stacks of books and catalogs.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. So, development of library collections. Okay, so we have had a way we have developed those collections in the past. All right. Some of that is staying the same. Some of it's a little different. So I'll walk through these bullet points with you. So if they're proposed for purchase or even donations, because we can have donations, they're all going to be recommended to you ultimately after we use the Texas State Library and Archives Commissions and the district standards. Okay, that's been the case historically. So our librarians and our district personnel, they'll go through a list and they'll create it. They rely pretty heavily on professional journals and publications and for reviews because they're experts in that kind of stuff, and they'll look at a book and say, hey, that's good for this grade level, it's not for this. That's okay to be in a high school library, really shouldn't be in an elementary library, so on and so forth. And so they'll review a lot or rely a lot on the TSLAC standards that I mentioned, but a lot of it is from the publications and the professional journals. Obviously, we're going to not have books in our libraries that have harmful and obscene material. That's something that's in the policy, always has been. And then whether or not they have literary merit and support our local curriculum. So again, I don't want to misrepresent what we're doing here. So any books that you get on a list from here on out, they're going to exclude like replacements for damaged books that have already been approved. Okay? And any book that has the same ISBN or previously approved books will not be in front of you for your approval. Okay? So how that will work, our librarians and our district personnel will use the standards to look at all the mini books and make a decision on what needs to be on a list. That list will be made open to the public to view for 30 days before it comes to you guys. Right? So it'll have to sit for 30 days. Then it will be presented to you all. What you'll have and what we will do too is when we open that list, it's like, hey, here is the information that we use to put these books on the list. It's open to the public. You can see that information as well. You can go read not you guys, I'm talking public. They can go read the reviews that they wanted to. They can look at those books. They can look them up in other areas. There are mechanisms for them to provide feedback to campus principals, so on and so forth. You all will have that same information at your hands to decide whether or not you want to approve the list. When that gets to you, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit because you're talking, this is maybe October, November before a list gets to you guys. But you would have the opportunity to say, let's vote as a board. I'm good with this book, we're not good with this book, and then at the end, you would vote to approve or reject the entire list. So one book, you all could decide, hey, we looked at the reviews, don't like that. We raise our hand to vote on that. That book's removed from the list. And then there will be an overall vote for the entire list. And if you vote to approve that list, those books will go into our libraries.
Dr. King, presumably procedurally, we'd also get distributed the list at the same time it's released to the public so that we could do our own DD at the same time?
Yes, sir. Yeah. We'll likely have that list on a webpage. It'll be new. It'll be the Department of Library Services webpage, and we'll put that list there. But we could get you your own list. Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you guys could just notify us when the list is updated, that would be helpful.
Yep. No
Thanks.
problem. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So how long do you envision this list being? Just, what's your best guess, your crystal ball?
Oh, I don't have a best guess on that one. I can maybe talk about whether or not we're supposed to have library. I don't know about that a lot to quantify it.
Because you've already got the ISBN numbers. These are, in other words, all the duplicates are gone, all the whatever, right?
I asked that question, and I don't remember the number that I was given. She just looked at me and said, it's going to be a lot. So I just said, okay. So we'll see. I'll have a better, and get that list to you guys, but it's going to be quite the list. Yes, sir.
So we're going to approve a list of everything we already have? Or
No, sir.
no, just new
books for
stuff?
purchase.
New
Yes, sir.
Just
ISBN
new,
numbers.
and we're going to have a new list that's substantial, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that because we're buying a package from a book company or a publisher, or is it because we've just done that much diligence and think we need to enhance our libraries?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the legislature has put this law in place specifically so that we are more careful in how
they
we
have.
look at buying a bunch of books from
Oh, yeah.
a publisher.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things I would say just about the volume of it, and I mean, like how many books are we talking about here? And tell me if I'm wrong about this, but so most of the time when we order a book that is a replacement or damaged or whatever, it is a new printing of the old printing of the book that we've had in the library for a little bit. So that would be a new ISBN number and would be on this list for them.
Could be.
In that type case. So
sir.
that's going to expand the list to some point,
It will.
as
Well, I would hope that we have librarians that are getting compensated to flag those with that kind of, this is a book already in our library, it's a new edition with a new ISBN, so that we can know as a board that we're looking at new material versus material we already have in a new edition. I mean, that, I would ask that to
Yes,
be.
sir. I think that's part of their weeding process already. I mean, it's kind of the librarian term for this of weeding. Has it been a long time since this book has been checked out? So we probably need to take it out of circulation and find something that, maybe is checked out more or replace damage or whatever. So I think that's part of their calculus in going through this already, is determining, even though if it's a new ISBN, is it replacing current? Yes, sir.
Thanks.
And I say too, without being able to tell you this is how many books are going to be on, now I'm making it sound like, hey, it could be 1,000 books. I'm really not sure about that because it'll really depend on the process they go through. But again, it's going to sit for 30 days for folks to get a look at it. But I mean, I think we need to be reasonable. I mean, if it's a list that that one person could sit through and look at it if you so want. I mean, we could take a little bit longer before it goes to you guys to approve. So what we want to do, what the process is meant for, is to make sure that the right books hit in our libraries at the end of the day.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the diligence the district is doing in this process, but I would suggest if that number exceeds, I don't know what the right number is, 500, 1,000, that we might want to break this up over a couple of months.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Like I said, I know it's hard because it's like, maybe it's 150 and that seems like a lot, and which it would be. That's a lot of books to go through. If you really wanted to look at every review on that book, that's a lot to go through even in 30 days. But I think we need to look at that list, and if it is something that's just, unreasonable for people to go through in 30 days and look at, then we can break that up and be smart about it.
Sounds like it won't be 5.
No, sir.
Well, I think the other thing that is worth pointing out is the legislature was very specific about insisting that it is the school board members that do this.
Yeah.
not the administration, not the principal, that they have laid, you know, this on you guys. And partly to give voice to the public, and I understand all that. And, you know, I mean, I appreciate the transparency, but it's a task. You know, but it has been laid specifically by the legislature on y'all to review the list of books and vote one way or the other on them.
So parental access and involvement. So our parents have access to library catalogs, including online library catalogs. I think we have already made reference to that. So we will publish, based off the policy, information about how and where those library materials can be accessed. So we want to be transparent with that. Campuses will communicate these things to parents. So the policies relating to school libraries, the ones we're talking about here, how they can access library materials consistently. So, for instance, the same way our librarians could go in and look electronically for a book in their library, our parents will be able to look at that as well. Okay. And then opportunities to provide feedback on library materials mostly would be from a parent to a principal, saying, hey, I've got questions about this book, or I don't like this book. And as far as their children selecting library materials, a parent could, again, go online, look at a book, say, hey, for whatever reason, could be any number of things, right? I don't want my child checking out this book. So we will have a process in place for where they can either notify the principal or the librarian, say, I do not want my child to check this book out, and they wouldn't allow that child. That's where some of the beauty of having an electronic system, it would basically just put a hold on that book for that child. Not remove it for any other child, but put a hold on that book for that child, and that child wouldn't be allowed to check out that book, that ebook, access whatever materials in the library. So,
Dr. King, isn't
Yes.
that, it's somewhat what we have in place today, though, right?
yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
okay.
Yeah. And then obviously they could select alternative materials for their child. So then we get to maintenance. So after all this is done, we purchase library books with the same thing we already have. Like, how do we maintain a library collection? It's pretty straightforward. So our librarians are pretty constantly going through processes to weed the library, right? In some ways, there's only so much space, right? And then they're trying to make sure it matches. You know, is it relevant? Do we still have a diversity of appeal, a wide variety of interest levels, so on and so forth. And then there's district personnel, parent community input, all those things that they look at. And then obviously there's repairs and replacements that need to go on in terms of maintaining what's already in our library. So that's the policy. Happy to answer any more detailed questions you guys have. Questions? So this is something that I'm asking you guys to vote on today, to go ahead and put into policy.
Everybody good? All right. So we need a motion to adopt the proposed policy EFB local, instructional resources, library materials, as presented by Dr. King. Motion by Stacia, seconded by Jay. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Y'all can keep those hard copies.
We appreciate it.
You're not throwing any shade here, are you? Okay. Anything else we need to cover?
No, sir.
All right. Do we need to have an executive session for any reason?
No, sir.
All right. Huh?
Not tonight.
All right. All right, then we need a motion to adjourn this meeting. I thought everybody would raise their hand at once. David, and then seconded by Jordan, all in favor? That motion passes, meeting adjourned. Time is 7:26.